And welcome to everyone. My name is Leonor Murciano-Luna, and today is all about celebration. It's about creating a new feminine story for ourselves as women. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the coming out of my new book, Birth of the Conscious Feminine, a new era of feminine sovereignty. And I'm going to talk about and lead us in a process of creating a new story for ourselves. So welcome and thank you for popping in here and listening. Thank you. So a little bit about the book. The Birth of the Conscious Feminine. So this book has been 6 years in the making, and I'm the founder of Conscious Feminine Medicine, and basically in Conscious Feminine Medicine I work with women that are awake and conscious and that are really wanting to heal on all levels, in the heart and the soul, but even more importantly, have a deep yearning to connect with their soul essence, to really step into living in their soul. And living in our soul really is about living in and finding the true happiness within. It's really about understanding that we carry the medicine that we're needing within ourselves. And we're going to really unravel all of that today, including talking about the feminine and what that is and how that manifests. So in this journey of actually writing this book in the last 6 years, I go into it. Well, really the book is about helping women to do just that. It's like how to live in our feminine soul. And I'm going to talk about what that means. But it's about awakening to these deeper levels of consciousness that are there, that have been hidden within us. And it's really about the feminine consciousness. It's about awakening ourselves to that. And before we actually go into a little bit of the history of the book, let's talk about what it is to awaken to the feminine. Because there's a lot of consciousness around talking about that. There's a lot of people talking about that, and it comes through in different ways, what the feminine is. And there's different levels to it. The way that I refer to the feminine is really about being able to lead with our hearts. It's about being able to feel. It's like bringing on the feeling and our intuition and the unseen sacred aspect of us back online. It's about restoring that, because that in many ways has been severed in the last 5,000 years. And we used to really be in a culture where the feminine within us, in both men and women, was honored. And the feminine is about really being that container. It's about realizing that we are this matrix of light. We are these divine consciousness in expression in our physicality here on earth. And the feminine is about opening up to that realm that exists within us. And along with that there's the level of really connecting with our emotions and allowing our emotions to flow and releasing the shame that's been conditioned around our emotions. It's about connecting with that intuitive unified field of our light where we can receive the wisdom and be in direct experience with the wisdom. And it's really about connecting and being and living from our soul and the union of both, right? So it's about the union of the feminine and the masculine. The masculine qualities are more about actually coming out and doing in the world. And there's many other qualities, of course, to the masculine. But we've been under really a culture of the distorted masculine in many ways, where we're severed from our feminine essence. And if you go back in time, there's a lot of history now that shows us that at least between 40,000 BCE and about up to 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, so around 2,000 to 3,000 BC, there was a culture. They lived in an era. There was an era of feminine lunar sovereignty, which meant that the feminine was really acknowledged at that time. And instead of having following the cycles of just the sun, the moon cycles were followed, and the moon was revered, and of course also the seasons. And so there was a lot of connection with the actual earth. And in many ways, women were also seen and honored as having the ability to connect with this unseen realm and really being honored as sacred. Women were honored as sacred. The earth was honored as sacred. And we were aware of this feminine dimension and within everything. Feminine dimension also carries the quality of knowing that every single thing, material thing, carries the essence, carries sacredness, right? And so our bodies were sacred. Not just women's, but men, animals were honored and seen as sacred, plant life in the earth, etc. So it was a whole different awareness, and with that awareness came a certain harmony that was implicit in the order of things. And then in many ways, what started to happen, that the feminine started to be deteriorated and was replaced by domination cultures that, instead of having the great mother as, part of the divine essence that's always pouring out life, that's always supporting us, that is in many ways that container, right? The container in the unseen, right? That was replaced by a father god that was actually not as loving, much more strict, much more punishing, and fear-inducing in many ways. And that whole domination culture started to shut down, started to erase the feminine, started to erase this culture of the great mother. And along with that, because women were also revered to have a very deep, strong connection with the feminine, and in many ways were an expression of the feminine, because they could give birth to life, and were very close in working with the earth and the divination and receiving the intuition, and they were also working as healers in many cultures. So all of that got repressed and erased, as we all know. And so then we've been under this culture of more of the solar masculine culture, but in many ways it's distorted because it's lost its foundation of the feminine. And so this has created a lot of pain, a lot of conditioning, and for the women that have gone before us, the mothers, our foremothers, our ancestors on both sides of our lineage, suffered greatly in these 5,000 years. And so what has happened is that collectively we still feel a lot of that conditioning that was created in this culture. And in many ways, we call it the patriarchy. In many ways, it's still very subtle in the field, even though we have a lot of freedom, or it may seem like we have a lot of freedom, but it's still the conditioning, the repression, the not feeling safe as women is still all there unconsciously in our psyche. And this separation of the feminine and of the sacredness in the material realm, right? This separation has really led us to this point where we are with the earth, has led us to this point where we are, really in this path of destruction on the planet. And so, as women, it's a little bit differently how the feminine, how we're reclaiming the feminine than, for example, for men. They have their own stories, and their reclamation process is a little bit differently than for women. For women, our voice in many ways have been severed, and we have not felt safe because of our sex as women. And that collective story still affects us in many ways. There's many ways in which we feel shame. There's many ways in which we feel unworthy. There's many ways in which we, through the generations have had this passed on to us. And we're breaking free. This is the new story of the feminine. We're actually breaking free from all of that conditioning. And the book, Birth of the Conscious Feminine, is really about how to break free from that, how to really live in our soul, in our feminine soul, and ultimately in union with our masculine. But before we can come into union, we need to be able to liberate our voice, liberate the shame that still lives within us, the fear, the unworthiness. And sometimes these things come through and we experience them as disorders in our body, thyroid disorders or even headaches or autoimmune issues or infertility. So I have personally worked with women as a holistic doctor. I have worked with women for the last 23 years in private practice. And the way that I address the imbalances that come through are really about connecting and reclaiming our feminine essence in many ways. It's about really allowing ourselves to connect with our soul and live from the soul. And we do this even with emotional, when we have emotional imbalances that we've been suffering with, like anxiety or depression. These all seem like there's a very strong root that stems from being severed from our essence, being severed from knowing that we are sacred and that we are this matrix of light, right? And so that's where a lot of the information in here has come through. And there's different parts of the book that walk you through different exercises to do. For example, the setup has the 5 sacred initiations of the feminine, which is really 5 different steps that we can take that I've seen in many women as they've worked with me individually or in groups, that allow us to first establish the work of knowing that we are this light. And it's not just knowing intellectually, but actually feeling it and being able to connect with that and access that light. And then helping ourselves move through, especially the lower chakras where we feel, where we have held a lot of our pain, a lot of our conditioning in our solar plexus, with powerlessness, and not feeling like we don't have any say, feeling victimized by life itself or by the universe, again, due to this severance that we have, that we've been severed from our feminine soul. And the third initiation is about moving into our sacral chakra and gateway, and working with all of the issues that we have with our body, all of the pain. Because as we, in many ways, as we've separated from our essence, we have also then, in many ways, demonized our bodies and felt all of that shame in our bodies and taken it on. Because even though the patriarchy is a system, is a culture outside of ourselves, in many ways, we have internalized those beliefs. And so it's about unraveling that, going deeper and deeper within ourselves and unraveling those beliefs so that we can free ourselves to actually be who we are, and to reclaim that joy and live in that joy and that essence. And then the other parts of the initiation, we go all the way down into the root, where we hold a lot of the fear of being abandoned and the whole perception of being abandoned by the divine, and having the divine replaced with this Father God that in many ways didn't have the nurturing qualities, wasn't seen and wasn't expressed as a place for us to feel the love and feel safe. And so in many ways that also has been internalized into our bodies. And so the 5 sacred initiations walks you through each one of these, not just intellectually, but actually in your body, with certain exercises and meditations to do. The book also covers the 13 pillars of conscious feminine medicine, which is the foundation of these teachings. And the 13 pillars starts to create an understanding of who you are and what's possible, on all levels, not just, like I said, intellectually as an idea, but it's like, okay, if I'm a being of light and I'm able to actually activate that light, what does that mean? What does that really mean for my body, for my suffering, for the places that, that I struggle with, for the, part of me that feels unhappy? What does that mean? And so the 13 pillars starts to open up our minds to really grasp how and what it is to be in this physical body, but also honoring our divinity, our divine essence. And those are the two main aspects of the book. And then we have a third aspect, which is the 7 archetypes. So I have a little story to tell you. The book was actually completed last year, and then we went into COVID. And because the book was 6 years in the making, what happens is, the information starts coming in, and, it's almost like an ongoing process of evolution, where there's always something new happening, because we're creative beings and we're constantly capable of creating when we're tuning in, and that expressive mode wants to come out in all different ways. So when COVID hit, I decided to actually revise the book again, because I was getting this whole chart of the 7 archetypes, which I call the 7 embodiments of the feminine. And these are 7 different ways in which the feminine can be expressed through ourselves. And we're actually going to go into that a little bit later. And so it took another year to revise and prepare and include this. So all of that is already included. And these 7 embodiments are connected with our gateways, with our chakras, and they're also connected with sounds. So there's different sounds to use to actually activate this. And in many ways, they're also archetypes, that are there. They're also fields of energy that can be seen as fields, right? That we can tap into, but these fields also exist within us. So we have, for example, the medicine woman, which is our inner healer and our capacity to heal and what that means. And we have the wild woman, and we have the feminine wisdom keepers, which is our capacity to be able to see in the unified field, is also the Akashic field, where we're able to connect to all of time, past, present, and future, and be that seer. And then we have the cosmic womb mother, and our ability to be the love, not just love ourselves, but actually activate that field within us that is love. That is an aspect of our soul, of our soul's light. We are that love of consciousness. And so on and so forth. So I'm going to actually put the chart up in a few minutes. And it's fascinating because it all correlates, and there's ways to activate all of these dimensions within us. And they all also correlate with different negative beliefs or negations of ourselves that we might be holding in our body. And it's very fun, in a way, to actually activate, especially, the wild woman in our throat, and connect to the truth within us, the medicine woman in our solar plexus, and also the other, we also have the dark mother, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Also, it's our ability to transform and release and and let go of all that. So we have that ability, and all of those are part of the 7 archetypes of our feminine soul. And the more that we can come into relationship with each one of those is it's really not saying that they're not outside of ourselves. These are inherent abilities, powers that we have within. One of the big ones I was going to mention that I forgot to mention was the creatrix, which is that aspect of consciousness that actually allows us to create, allows us to move into creation and continuously create through our consciousness, right? So we're a co-creator, because we're not all of consciousness. There's still source, which is greater and has created, everything in creation, but we are an aspect of that, and so connecting with that ability within ourselves helps us to really activate these places within us, and to reclaim our feminine power, the ones that have been lost, the ones that have been in many ways repressed. So that's just a little bit about the book and the process that's in here. And so I'm going to actually, let me see if I can put up the chart and we can talk about these, and then we're going to go into a little process of creating our new story. So let me just see for a moment. Okay, so here we go. We're going to be able to share that. All right. So here we find the chart of the 7 archetypes of the feminine. And the first line that we have is the affirmation. And we speak about the first one is the Dark Mother, and it goes in order of our gateway. So we have the gateway, the root, and the sacral, and then the solar plexus, and the heart, and the throat, and the third eye, and then we have the crown. And so the first one is I am wisdom. So the Dark Mother is the aspect of wisdom within us. And the sacred superpower is wisdom, and it's in the root, and it's connected to our vitality, our vital self. And the gift is the life force. It's our ability to connect with our life force, and through that life force also connect with the consciousness of wisdom. And we're not going to go through all of them, but just to have an idea, these 7 different archetypes allow us, once we understand ourselves as these, once we understand that we can activate these within us, and that we inherently carry this essence within us, then we're able to create a whole new story for ourselves. For example, the co-creatrix is all about creating in life. It's like, what do we want to create? What do we want to bring out and manifest in our lives? The healer, the medicine woman, which is the solar plexus, is all about really allowing ourselves to heal physically, emotionally, mentally. It's our ability to transform whatever is in the way that's causing us pain on whichever level it's at, whether it's emotional or mental. And the heart, the cosmic womb mother, is about really opening up ourselves as the love. So it's about opening up that frequency within us that is love. Many of us are really searching for love, want to be this love mirrored to us, this unconditional love, and many times we fail on the outer. We're not able to connect to the love, and really be fulfilled. And it's because that deep yearning of the soul can only be fulfilled with the soul's love, with that stream of love that you are, right, from consciousness itself. But you are that. So connecting through the heart, we find the cosmic womb mother, and that's what she represents. The wild woman is all about being able to express our truth, to say our truth, to live in our truth, to be able to feel safe enough so that what we are saying through our throat is in alignment and with our soul. And so that you're able to speak from the soul and not have a disconnect by saying one thing but really meaning another, because then there's a disconnect within you, and this disconnect within you is going to cause imbalances in your own body. Then we have the seer, which is a feminine wisdom keepers, and in many ways the feminine wisdom keepers allows to connect to that unified field of being able to receive the truth, receive the past, the present, the future of whatever we need, whatever is in our highest to be able to see. These are the seers. And this seeing is an aspect of our feminine soul as well. And then from our crown, we have the ecstatic feminine. The ecstatic feminine that is all about being able to connect to our joy, being able to connect to that essence within us that really is all about feeling good in our bodies. And for most of us, we have a lot of shame around, we've been conditioned around feeling good in our body, and it doesn't feel good. Or there's guilt that we feel good and someone else is suffering. So for all of these, in order for us to actually open ourselves up to these, there's this process that we have to engage in, which is the process of actually becoming aware, tuning in and becoming aware of our conditioning, becoming aware of what we've learned, what we've internalized. In many ways, the patriarchy, this culture that we've been steeped in, that has in many ways repressed the feminine, is really living within us. So in many ways, the patriarchy is actually living within us. It's living within our thoughts, it's living within our family systems, it's living within our psyche. And the process is a process of transformation. It's a process of alchemy in which is about, through our feelings, through our ability to connect with our soul and feel and listen, we're able to see the ways in which we judge ourselves. We're able to see how we're feeling about ourselves as a whole, and we're able to see our conditioning, how we've been conditioned to think we're unworthy, to think that we're not safe, to think that all these things about us, and to actually in many ways put our value outside of ourselves rather than within ourselves. And so in many ways, this process of transformation is really a process of alchemy. It's really a process of alchemy, and it's about letting ourselves connect and go inward and start to feel. And the first step is really to connect with our breath. And the second step is to feel whatever is there, because most of our conditioning is going to show up as pain. It's going to show up as places that feel uncomfortable. It's going to show up as that discomfort within ourselves. And so in many ways, it's about having the courage to enter with our breath into this domain. And once we have a new awareness of what's possible, then we can go in and allow these places to start to unravel and feel. And it's almost like letting ourselves kind of go through the breath, the river of our breath, which I always say the river of our breath, that's like this ocean within us, and surrender. And what are we surrendering into? We're surrendering into the unseen, unknown aspects of consciousness, of the divine. We're surrendering and we're letting ourselves be taken in. And what happens is that we start to dissolve all of those thoughts, all of those conditioning that we at one time were so enmeshed in. It starts to dissolve. The frequency starts to shift. The vibration starts to shift. And what allows this process are several things, but the most important thing is your willingness, your intention on this process. And once you have that intention, then you're able to actually go in and start to trust. start to trust the divine consciousness of your being to take you through this landscape of your emotions, of the difficulty, of the discomfort. And as you bring awareness to those discomforts and you allow yourself to feel, it's like you start to allow it to dissolve. Yeah. So that's really the process. And that's the process that that I do in my groups, and it's a process of deep alchemy and transformation. And then it's about really moving into from understanding of, oh yes, I'm a light being, or I'm a being of light, or, you know, I have this aspect of the medicine woman and what she is, and the ability to heal, or the ability to create, or the ability to be in my truth. And that's a concept, and then bring it all the way through and being able to embody it from your womb, right? So through the heart, we're then able to bring it all the way through and activate that truth that's also in our being, and embody it in our womb. And so it's a very beautiful transformational process of awakening, but not just awakening in our mind, but awakening in our being and being able to embody. So the feminine, again, the feminine is all about realizing that our form, our physical form, and all of creation is sacred, right? So in this way, what we're doing is we're awakening that sacredness within us, right? And that's who we are. And that's what doesn't die. That's what doesn't die. That's the eternal aspect of ourselves, which sometimes we call spirit or soul. So let's just take a deep breath here and come back around to the whole aspect of living in a new story of the feminine and what that means. And so if we're living in a new story of the feminine, I'm just going to check this out. Okay. So if we're living in a new story of the feminine, or rather, how do we create a new story of the feminine? And I talked about, you know, really this whole aspect of our feminine soul that we've been disconnected from, and that collectively we still hold so much of that conditioning within us. And so let's take a little dive into just kind of being with ourselves and allowing ourselves to create a new story. And so if we were to contemplate creating a new story of ourselves, we can think of maybe one of those aspects that we talked about earlier, one of the archetypes, medicine woman, the healer within, or the creatrix, or the cosmic womb mother, or the wild woman, or the ecstatic feminine that's all about joy. And just see which one, you know, if there's one that actually comes to your mind just spontaneously in this moment. And I want you to just be able to allow that to be there, to allow yourself to feel what would it look like to activate this within you. You know, for example, to activate the joy and live from joy and live with joy, or activate the love and know that you're loved and be able to all of the parts of you that do stuff or that do things in order to receive love because you feel unworthy, or because you feel abandoned, or because you feel a lot of shame and you want that validation. All of that, if that were completely just dissolved in this moment, how would that feel for you to know that you are love? So these are what I'm speaking about, is really living in your soul, living in the perfected light of your soul, knowing that you are this light matrix, and that the qualities of that light matrix are the ones that we're speaking of: love, joy, freedom to speak, freedom to express and be, freedom to create and enjoy the creation. Now, I want to say one thing before we actually go into this process. I want to clarify that living in our soul is not like this woo-woo idea of, oh, once I open this up and activate this, or, continue to activate, because it's a process, it's not a one-time thing. Continue to activate and awaken to deeper levels of my soul, then everything is, perfect in some way. And that's not actually true. That's a fantasy that we create in our minds of what that's going to be like. The truth is that we're still going to have challenges. We're still going to have emotions. We're still going to have things that happen that might trigger other places within us, that might make us feel, or feelings of inadequacy or shame or fear or powerlessness come up. But the difference is, what living in our soul and awakening to our feminine essence, what it does is that we're able to feel more and more this consciousness around us. We're able to feel the divine dimension as this container that we can rest in, as this container that is loving, as this container, it's like the mother, right? It's like living in the field and the awareness that there's this great mother, and she's loving us, and she is holding us, and she is there no matter what, and we don't need to behave in a certain way. We don't have to do certain things in order to receive the love, because that's conditioned love, right? That's human love. And so in many ways it brings our souls where we could rest, And not only rest, but we can actually receive guidance. And we can tune into the wisdom. And we can be in our place of not knowing, and asking for help, and asking for assistance, and receiving it. And so in a way, we feel supported by life, rather than as a victim of life, or like in the struggle where it's all dependent on what you do, personally, and what you can do and what you can achieve, and then that's where your happiness comes from. The truth is that your happiness is within. It's an inner job. And you can achieve all that you want and still be deeply, deeply dissatisfied. So I wanted to clarify that, because there's a lot of, concepts, we would say, out there about, when you're living in your soul, then, or when you reach a certain level of enlightenment or awakening, then, everything is hunky-dory. And in many ways there is. In many ways, there's a deep peace that you feel even as you experience the limitations of, the physical field, or the pain, or something, or other people's pain, there is a place where you can go inside and still be nurtured and held and supported, and you could feel in peace, right? So you might temporarily be triggered or go into fear or go into all these other states, right, of emotional states that kind of take you out of center, but then you're able to come back in because you've opened up that deep connection with your feminine soul. And so also remembering that it's a process, it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. We open that connection, and then as we continue to dissolve, to allow and to unravel the conditioning that we've been under, that cloud, that spell of believing things that are beliefs that are in separation, right? Then we cultivate more and more and more of our light, and we're able to be in that light, and we're able to rest in that light and align with that light. And so it's a whole different way of moving through life. It's a whole different way of experiencing life, where instead of feeling alone and lost and at odds with life, because there's so much that goes on, that there's so much pain that we see, so much suffering, we're actually able to have some peace. We're able to go in and have some peace. And at this time, there is a lot of pain going on, and there's a big transformation happening for the whole planet. So we're seeing all of these shadows come to the surface, and these shadows are there to be transformed, transmuted within us. And what we're seeing triggers us as well, and the work is to be able to work that within ourselves and hold that light, hold that truth that we know is possible, so that we can move through this era that we've been of, this distorted young, distorted masculine culture, and come into a union of feminine and masculine. However, that union, before we could see it outside of ourselves, it's a deep process within ourselves. It's born from our consciousness. So within us, we have to be in alignment and in that inner marriage of the feminine and the masculine. The inner marriage, which, by the way, was that sacred initiation in the book, which is the 5th sacred initiation of the inner marriage. And it's not about fully being healed, because there's always going to be more and more layers and collective, trauma that we're processing as we're holding more and more light. But it is about being able to be in that peace and in that joy, even as we, experience, the challenges and the difficulties. So the world of the soul is about moving, there's a lot of paradoxes, right? It's like, how can you be in a challenge and still be in peace, right? How can you, experience a difficulty and still be in peace? But that is the world of the soul, where you're able to actually be in, experience these paradoxes. So because of that, it's a little challenging to speak of. So it's a direct experience within your own body. So let's, I have a few minutes left. Let's just take a little bit of a process time here and go within. And just take a deep breath. And let's just think of creating a new story of the feminine, or a new feminine story. What is your heart yearning for? Love, to know that you're loved, to know that you're worthy, to know the truth about yourself, to live in joy, to be able to speak authentically and feel safe, and express your deepest soul desire to live in the purpose of your life, to connect with the wisdom, to connect with the sacredness of your body, to honor your body, to end the struggle that maybe some of you might be having with your body, whether it's a disorder, an imbalance, maybe just struggle of body image. So just noticing, maybe it's to create your dream in the world, to feel like you have some power. Maybe it's to create. And maybe it's to connect with your joy. So just see what might resonate with you, and what aspect would you like to invite? And another way of seeing that is when you connect with your heart and you connect with your womb, bringing your right hand on your heart and your left hand on your womb. What is your heart yearning for? What is your heart yearning for? And then just allow yourself to, first of all, be aware of that and say an internal prayer intention to ask for that from the Great Mother. So you see the Great Mother as this field of light, this matrix of light that expands the whole universe, really. And you can see that as the Great Mother. And you're asking for what you're yearning. And you're wanting and desiring to create a new story of who you really are, that really aligns more with your truth of who you are. And then once you've done that, and you've asked and you've set that intention, then take some deep breaths. And then notice how your breath comes in, and your breath is coming in from the realm of consciousness outside of yourself, breathing in, coming into your body. And just allowing yourself to breathe. There you go, and exhale. And then noticing the breath as it comes in, and starting to surrender your thoughts, your emotions, your sensations, what you think you know, even your desires, everything, just surrendering it in to the breath of life, to the breath of the universe, which is coming into you. And allow It's like you've asked and now you're going to allow, and you're going to open yourself up to receive. And starting to let your throat open up also, and making your breath audible. So just whatever sound wants to come through. And just allowing as you breathe. So all you're doing is literally riding the wave of the breath. And with each exhale, you're letting yourself breathe, you're letting yourself move. And it's like you're letting your field open, you're letting your field open. You're creating some presence, some space. You're allowing presence. Activating your voice. When you activate your voice, it starts to open up. Vibrations, frequencies start to dissolve. Literally dissolve the vibrational frequencies that are in the way, the concepts, beliefs, etc., that are in the way of what you've asked for. So it's part of the transformational alchemical process. Just noticing, where do you feel a shift, perhaps more vibration in your body as you breathe? Where do you feel that? Maybe there's some tingling. This is part of the alchemy. And letting yourself feel and see or sense the great consciousness of the great mother, that divine field that you're in, all around you, consciousness of the cosmos. It's the great feminine, the great mother, loving field, responding to you, responding to your intention, responding to your prayer through your breath, and coming into your field. Your biofield is about 5 or 6 feet, extends. It's also your soul body. and coming into deep communion with the joy or the love or the freedom or the expression or the creativity or the medicine. Whatever you've asked for. Coming into that, into your field. And letting yourself breathe into that. And as you breathe into that, starting to see that your body is a body. You have a physical body, and then you have the light body all around you. And it's a matrix of light. It's a matrix of light. A lot of light points in your body, just like we see the stars at night. That is your body all around you. That's your soul body. Your biofield. It's all vibrational frequencies communicating. And a lot of our conditioning and our patterns are held in this light body. And then there's the cosmos and the Great Mother's light body. And those are the sky that we see, and all of the points of light are in the sky. And she is there communicating with us, activating. And our consciousness, our awareness is what turns it on in a way, what sparks it, what activates, right? When we ask, when we set our intention, when we believe that something is possible. And so just seeing the great matrix of light coming into your individualized matrix of light, into your field, activating, creating new neural pathways, activating the chakras, your gateways, activating your body, activating and receiving. You're receiving what you've asked for in your heart. And then seeing yourself as that, as the love. What would love do in this moment? If you saw yourself as the love, how would she express herself? How would the joy express herself? And as you do that, remember, if you feel you need to, you can make yourself audible breath. You can breathe out. I'm going to play a little bit of the drum to bring in. So breathing in, letting yourself really go with your breath. Be taken over by your breath, surrendering deeper and deeper, activating, receiving. And so to conclude, you can let yourself feel your body and this new story of the feminine. What does that feel like? What do you feel like in this alignment with your deeper self? What does it feel like in your body? And if you open your eyes, what does it feel like as you look around the room? What does it feel like as you take in the room around you? To come back into this physical body, this physical reality. And that's an exploration you can dive into this week. Yeah. And we're going to end this little exploration by bowing our head, our heart, and our womb to the divine oneness source, Great Mother. And may you liberate all of us and bring us into our truth, our love, the light, and the new consciousness awakening here within each and every one of us. And as you come back on, and you can still feel this reality within you, you might want to journal how it feels to bring through and step into this new story of yourself. And if you step into this new story of the love, then what does the love want to say to the other parts of yourself that you have believed to be you? Maybe the parts that don't feel as good, or don't believe in yourself, or don't believe in your dreams. And you might want to journal what love would say and receive those messages from the deep place of your soul in connection with the divine consciousness. So this for today, we're going to be ending this process here, and I want to invite everyone, if you feel you resonate, to actually read through the book, purchase the book, Birth of the Conscious Feminine. I'll have the details on this video. Oh, here's my little wonderful healing Zen. And the book is Birth of the Conscious Feminine. And also, if you'd like to join us, if any of this resonates, you can join us for our Inner Circle group. The Inner Circle is a group, it's feminine medicine, so it's this kind of medicine of stepping into our new story. And it meets 3 Saturdays a month, in which we go into the alchemy, into the transformation, into this whole process with sound, with voice activation, with sound healing, with the drum, with the crystal bowls, and allow us to move into the release of our conditioning and to move into our feminine soul and cultivate the new story within us. And so that's a membership based, and you can register to that, and the memberships are on a sliding scale. It's $77 per month, and that includes all 3 activations, and it's live on Saturday mornings, or you'll have the recording, and also the library of recordings. And we also have a sliding scale that brings it down to 44, so 44 to 77. And you can register and join like-minded group of women that are really transforming, wanting to transform, wanting to live in their soul, wanting to live in love and purpose, and activate our full potential and heal physically, heal emotionally, heal the deepest wound in our soul, which is that separation, knowing that we're really one. And I also invite you to join me on November 3rd for our dark moon, and that's going to be a free event online. The dark moon, I do that every month, and the dark moon this month we're going to be talking about the dark mother and this archetype. What's the dark mother? Who is she? The transformation and alchemical process, which is really connected to this time of year, which is the end of the year, really. The end of the year, which is going to be with this dark moon, this new moon that's happening next November 4th, I believe it is. So November 3rd is the dark moon time, which is right before the new moon. And you can join us in this exploration. It's very kind of this shamanic transformational process, similar to what we did now, but going deeper and just focusing on that process and understanding what that transformation is, and how we can actually move into these greater levels of love of our feminine soul within us. So I want to thank you, and many, many blessings. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Peace.